The amount that nuclear weapons have changed warfare is nearly impossible to overstate. The ability to destroy an entire country, along with every major city and hundreds of millions of people along with it in less than an hour, has caused world leaders to completely rethink war. The winner was no longer the strongest or most determined. War could not be won, and, in a way, war itself became the enemy. What they eventually came up with is the concept of mutually assured destruction. That is, the only way to avoid a nuclear war is that each side have sufficient nuclear weapons to fully destroy the other. That way, no one side would ever choose to start such a war. It's a radical, yet simple and effective doctrine. The problem is, it's all based on a pre-war threat. It does nothing to slow down or de-escalate a war once it's already started. At which point, you would have to decide, where is that line? If your enemy used 1 or 2 nuclear bombs on you, is it time to put that threat into action and carry out a full retaliation strike? Or is it worth just accepting the damage and not responding, so to avoid even worse destruction? This video is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Christmas came early this year because I just got gifted the new Performance Package by Manscaped. It comes with everything you could possibly need from head to toe, literally. And you could even use it for other things. For example, I used my old lawnmower to trim Tank's feet. Right, Tank? The new kit comes with the latest Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. It's waterproof, and it has their skin-safe technology to reduce nicks and cuts. It also has a handy LED light. Also their Crop Preserver deodorant and Crop Reviver toner spray. What else can I say, but this is a game changer. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. Real useful, especially the older you get. It has 360-degree rotary blades, along with that same skin-safe technology from the trimmer. It also comes with their upgraded Shears 2.0, a luxury 6-piece stainless steel nail kit. So don't wait, Christmas is coming up real fast, and this works as a perfect gift to check someone off your list. Go to manscaped.com, use promo code COVERT20, and you'll get 20% off, plus free international shipping, plus 2 free gifts. Again, Manscaped. World War II was the largest and most deadly war in human history, and it finally came to an end shortly after the use of 2 nuclear bombs, the first and only time nuclear weapons have been used in combat. Whether or not the use of them was justified has been and still is debated vigorously. The US at the time was gearing up to invade mainland Japan, and the estimated death toll was extremely high. So, some argue that the bombs actually saved millions of lives by avoiding that. Although others argue that Japan was already about to surrender. When their attempt to gain a truce with the Soviet Union failed, they knew that there was no hope left, and would have surrendered anyway. What is clear though, is that their use changed warfare. Now, entire societies could be wiped out in a matter of minutes. Throughout history, many wars have been fought over miscalculations. World War II is a perfect example of that. Both Japan and Germany calculated that they could win a war, and that they would benefit from it. During the Cold War though, those major miscalculations were avoided, as the costs and potential consequences were clearer than ever with nuclear weapons. From this, the idea of nuclear deterrence arose. The basic idea of deterrence has been around forever. The ancient Romans even had a phrase for it, si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. But the addition of nuclear weapons took it to a new extreme level. Both sides went to great lengths to develop methods to ensure that at least some of their nuclear forces could survive a first strike by the other so that they could retaliate. Nuclear deterrence requires 3 key elements to work. 1, that you have a large enough and survivable enough nuclear force that you can strike back. 2, that your enemy truly believes that you will use it if necessary. And 3, that both sides believe that such a war would be so devastating that any potential gains would be irrelevant, that the costs would greatly exceed any benefit. And that's where it can get tricky. If the fear of large-scale nuclear war is enough to deter someone from ever starting a war using nuclear weapons, then it could also possibly deter them from ever defending themselves with nuclear weapons. That there opens up the possibility of one side believing that it is possible to gain from such a war. For example, say a series of events occurred that led North Korea to use a couple nuclear weapons on Guam, which is a US territory. At this point, the US would have a few options. Either respond with nuclear weapons themselves, as stated in the threat crucial to deterrence, or just accept the damage and not retaliate. By retaliating with nuclear weapons, North Korea would then almost certainly launch their own as well, and they would launch the long ones that can reach the US mainland, like Los Angeles, New York City, Washington DC, etc. So it creates a dilemma. Not responding would almost certainly lead to the lower amount of total destruction sustained, but the fact that you might be willing to allow that level of destruction without responding with nuclear weapons shows that the benefits could outweigh the costs for an attacker. And for this reason, you will never hear any official policy from any nuclear power on exactly what they would do in such a situation. They will never define that line. The credibility of your deterrence relies upon your potential enemy believing that you would retaliate with nuclear weapons in events like this. But when it actually happens, it's a different story. So, in this case, deterrence is just a bluff. But the bluff has worked so far. Despite there arguably having been more than enough reason to do so, the US and Soviet Union never fought World War III. However, today there are more nations than ever with nuclear weapons, and likely others working toward developing them, which all increases the likelihood of someone trying to call that bluff one day. Due to these concerns, whether it's this or even just a nuclear accident or a terrorist attack, there's been pushes to eliminate all nuclear weapons. In 2017, the UN passed the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons to try to do just this. However, the only nations that voted on it were countries without nuclear weapons, so it didn't mean much. Nuclear weapons are likely never to go away. They offer too much of an advantage. They can virtually guarantee a country is safe from invasion, no matter how small they are. North Korea, for example. Without nuclear weapons, it's possible North Korea would no longer exist at this point. Iraq, on the other hand, who didn't have nuclear weapons, was invaded and the government overthrown by the US. The other question I like thinking about is whether or not eliminating nuclear weapons would even be a good thing. Their dangers are obvious. They are clearly extremely destructive weapons, but at the same time, they stopped that cycle of having ever larger and more destructive world wars. So would we descend back into fighting large-scale conventional wars? Or has the world, through things like interdependence and globalization, or the advent of social media and live television, which can show the carnage and devastation, made such wars impossible? Or is there potentially another way out of the nuclear standoff, which has been threatening the existence of humanity that we've been in for over 75 years now? Toward the end of the Cold War, the US pursued technologies that could eliminate nuclear war by developing ways to destroy ICBMs in flight. However, with Russia developing unconventional delivery methods, such as Poseidon or their Status 6 nuclear-armed, nuclear-powered torpedo, it's clear that those alone would not be enough. So, is it possible that we're just doomed then to continue this trend? Until finally, one day, there's a mistake, or someone thinks they could win?